What remains to be said about the future? One thing's for sure, it's not what it used to be. Do you remember the future when it was eugenically scenic, populated with lithe bodies lounging in manicured parklands and gleaming crystalline cities under blue skies filled with softly humming aerial traffic? Or when it was occupied by genetically engineered and robotic citizenry, sterile agents of totalitarian biopower, hunting renegade cyberpunks in the neon-drenched night of a supercharged megalopolis? Or when the future was a post-apocalyptic prairie, roamed by road warrior outlaws and throwback tribal warlords? Or maybe it was a reality TV show, a eugenics and social Darwinist survivor program, a battle royale performance as a population experiment deciding the most fit to succeed. The genomic winners after what? Say a viral pandemic? Oh, excuse me. That's being conducted right now. I was talking about the future after the competition. Whether utopian or dystopian, whether as projections of a sanitized or derelict modernity, we could write the script for the future back then so vividly it didn't need to take place. Benediction, a prognosis, a false promise. What came to pass? More scripts, more movies, more reality games, more rehearsals of a non-event. Not anymore. Let me tell you, because I can hear it coming. Listen. There it is, out there, beyond the scrapyard, hauling its hooves towards us over the carcasses we've piled skyward. What's that beaked sound it tries to mutter, with its tongue wound in a gag and strangling on its stethoscope? Storm? Or sludge? Or ambulance siren? We can't be sure about what it will deliver, but it will be delivered. Unfurling and stoking anguish at being born misshapen at our doorstep. The plague doctor and the midwife are readying in attendance. It is coming. It follows. It contaminates. Miasma, sickness unto death, a bucket of blood. Call it what you will. Bloody Sarah Sarah. What will be, will be. Something wicked this way comes. That's one of Macbeth's gleeful witches anticipating doom. Who can argue against that? This wicked thing advances like a predator in a bar, and we receive it as a guilty wish. We invite the parasite in, this soured thing to come, this longing, this awaited love that we know will be spilled in the soil, that will become a soul locked in a forgotten room, a casualty outlasting premature burial. Can you hear the elegy whispered in the same breath as the oracular prediction? Grief and grievance lashed together in a black windstorm, cannibal legatees on the raft of the Medusa, this Death-Eater phantom of the future. Picture Dickens's ghost of Christmas future. Points a finger towards us to accuse and cast a spell, but there's no Dickensian sentiment here, no redemption, no Christmas come, no picnics, no cure for the crippled. That's its promise. Here's my promise. If you're hearing this, hearing this in the voice that's now speaking it, a voice, how would you describe it? More baritone than tenor, a little gruff, younger than my own, but more mature and worldly, certainly more polished and professional. If you're hearing it this way, and I can hear it as I write this, after all, I've commissioned this voice actor to take my place. If you hear him repeating my words, then I can promise you that something has happened to me. Something wicked. I don't know what it will be, but this actor will. He's been out there waiting, like an understudy about to hatch, brooding in the funereal nightfall of the future, in a darkness inflamed by the roiling fever of something wicked. Oh, bloody hell. Now I have to interrupt here. This script seems to have gone off message, and by the way, it happens to be casting me in a very bad light. Let me just say this. I can assure you that I have no idea what happened to the person who wrote this, and I had nothing to do with it, whatever it was. He's just taken off somewhere. Which, by the way, is no mean feat in these quarantine days. I know him enough to say he'd just shoot through to avoid the blame for this indulgent tirade and leave me holding the can. He hasn't lost his voice, just his nerve. Actually, I don't think he's that daring. I reckon he's just hiding on mute behind a blank Zoom screen. Bloody shameful. Well, I'm not complaining about that. The more distance between me and him, the better. And I don't just mean social distancing. He's a disaster waiting to happen. If this future of his is in my hands, it's only because I'm doing the job he asked me to. Speaking of which, where was I? Yes. In darkness. Something wicked.
The future of mankind is being decided behind closed doors. In laboratories all over the world, scientists are working on projects designed to take man beyond the confines.
Something wicked is inside my words. They're not the way I'd say them. When you hear him speaking on my behalf, it turns me into a character in a novel. And what kind of novel? I wanted to be a sci-fi about time travel, but I can tell already he's turning it into a ghost story about a curse from the past. My story is about the future. If it's a dark future, then that's because he's in it. And the character he's playing? That evil angel in the future? Does he sound condescending or sly? Yes. But more than that, I think he sounds guilty. A famous literary critic, whose name escapes me now, once insisted that to read a novel, get inside it, put flesh and blood into its voice, you have to, do away with the author. That critic, what was his name? He kept it rather abstract and neutral. He called this thing that happens the death of the author. God. The death of the author. But to him, I reckon the author was just a literary sign. It's a bit different when you're the actual author, who's supposed to die so that someone can read what you've written. Yes, that's a different story. That's murder, isn't it? So, this critic, whoever he is, he's dead to me when he tells me the author has to die, but he's led me into a trap. I share some culpability in that death, and it follows. So does this actor saying this. This is the scene of a crime, and his voice will have my blood on its hands. Oh, that's just nasty, isn't it? Murder? In this case, more like euthanasia. And, oh my God, clumsy writing as well. I've rehearsed this a few times, but I just can't get around that last mixed metaphor about a voice having hands. Ooh, it's a clanger. Now, it's not my job to correct his mistakes, but I think it should be changed to something like, the voice will cough. Oh, no. It will spit blood. There. Oh, and that imperious stuff about the sacrificial death of the author. I mean, I'm hardly reading Crime and Punishment, am I? God, someone who writes a crime novel cliché like blood on his hands doesn't deserve the title of author, does he? He's a hack, a ghostwriter, that's all, doing a job. If he's pronounced dead as a result, it's more thanks to his underlying health conditions. Look, I'll edit what I can, but please don't blame me for this turgid stuff that's coming. His voice will spit blood. That's tantamount to a confession. I am his victim. I may as well be now dead. I am a thing of the past. I am a thing of the past. God, more self-pity. Well, let's ramp it up and make that a thing from the past, and let's add persisting beyond my time. Like a bad smell, eh? Yes, if this is a dead author, then his carcass stinks. He might fancy himself as a gothic phantom, maybe a dandy from Edgar Allan Poe, but I see him as an offcut in an abattoir. Oh, God. Try this next tasty morsel.
I want to be listened to then. It depends on what you say. It's very serious. Your days are numbered.
I'm a thing from the past. Persisting. Yes, let's say persisting like a curse. Accept your debt to me. I will not let you go. Do you think you can silence me? You're only acting out my last will and testament. Every last will and testament is a hex as much as an inheritance. So what if I'm dead? You still have to do exactly what I say. My legacy is your affliction. My benefaction, your malediction. A theatre director isn't on stage, but still commands the actor. The future is an investment underwritten as a duty to the dead. A payoff. Do you know Edgar Allan Poe's tubercular character, Monsieur Valdemar? Now there's a voice actor, suspended in a hypnotic trance at the moment of death. And what does he say in that moment? The one thing that no one is ever able to say. I am dead. It comes out as an infected gurgle from the back of the throat, seeping through jaws frozen in a grimace and over a tongue lolling in a fetid mouth. Some posterity, but what a performance! Immortal, one could say. And who's the hypnotist who stages this miracle, if not Poe himself? The writer who puts those words in the actor's diseased mouth. Oh, what did I do to deserve this? Am I just being obstinate? I'm damned if I can find a trace of anything hypnotic in this morose pseudo-intellectual prattle. The only way you can rid yourself of the curse is by passing it on, not droning on about how bad it is to be stuck with it. Hasn't this guy seen any horror movies? Would it be too much to ask for something a bit more up-to-date than foppish gothic ghouls? Personally speaking, I wouldn't mind seeing a demonically vengeful, beautiful Japanese corpse, that's a murder victim by the way, crawl out of this computer screen right now. Now there's a dead author to die for. Oh, no such special effects here. This stuff is just irritating rather than scary. Too passive-aggressive to scare anyone to death. Even an exhausted zombie would bring some life into this script. Or a time-worn Terminator. Why not go back to the future where this all started? Let's say to the caged agony of a ghost in the shell, or a brain in a vat. An avatar in a computer game. Speaking of which, instead of this self-absorbed melancholy, how about some real dialogue, drama, conflict, jealousy, in place of this anemic academic prose? Life and death stuff, at the very least. How about a story with a love interest? The lover's discourse is a kind of hypnotism, seducing the lover to perform. Just look at that great seducer, Cyrano de Bergerac. There was a maestro at putting himself into another mouth. A supremely gifted writer, but too shy to directly speak to the object of his love, Roxanne. You know the story. He woos her through a proxy, a young soldier called Christian, good-looking, but inarticulate and fatuous. He's a puppet. Christian delivers the love letters and enacts the script of seduction that Cyrano composes. Ah, Cyrano, out of view like a ventriloquist, off stage as a director. Christian, being the sap he is, rightly gets nervous about being able to sustain this masquerade and insists Cyrano should break the news to Roxanne to tell her the truth. Of course, Cyrano has been speaking the truth all along. It's that buffoon Christian who's been faking. Christian, like all mime artists, is a dick. He thinks Roxanne shouldn't be swayed by mere words, even if these are splendid words dashingly scripted by Cyrano and deftly thrown into Christian's oafish mouth. I suppose Christian is asking for the same reprieve that Cyrano wishes for, to be loved for himself rather than for the mask he wears. But Christian's shallow good looks won't cut it. In the play written in 1897 by Edmond Rostand, the playwright gives Cyrano a cruelly ironic line when he admonishes Christian, "Speak for yourself, sir."
No. Where's this pathetic sentimental muck going? This is hardly a love interest. You want to know how Cyrano, this clucking tongue suitably detached from its unattractive body, ends up? He's hit on the head by a lump of wood dropped from a window. Hilarious. I can't recall if it's an accident or if someone has it in for him. Either way, it's a humiliating way to be finished off. To me, Cyrano is neither lovely nor interesting. Anyway, this is getting us nowhere. I've had the advantage of reading this script ahead of time, and I can tell you that there's more of this tiresome verbosity waiting. If we can't get real menace into the mix, at least do some sarcasm. Remind me, please, where we are in this.
Let me remind you that a ventriloquist throws their voice into an inert vehicle that steals the show, a dummy. Ask any ventriloquist about dummies, and they'll tell you they are devious, spiteful things that upstage you and insult you even when you're feeding them their lines. No wonder they're staple goods for stories about murderous split personalities or for horror movies about possession. The dummy is a jealous stand-in. Like the dummy run of a future performance. It's a vindictive test, a managerial performance review of the future. Not a proxy or replacement. More like a blank, undead corpse whose only feature is a twitching, stuttering, hungry mouth, too dumb to speak for itself. Despite its garrulous performance, it's a stooge or idiot. A dummy is what is shoved in your mouth to stop you making any protest. It's a gag.
Now, just a moment. I'm damn sure that stuff about a dummy wasn't there when I rehearsed the script. This is new. Something weird is going on here, and I don't like the sound of it. Is someone hacking this file? If this data's been corrupted, don't blame me. I'm just here to read the lines.
A gag. A gag. A gag.
I can't figure out which way to say this. Is the gag as in a one-line joke? Is it retching or puking or is it a muzzle? I could do with some direction here. I know it's a cheap shot, but so could the script.
If you want to follow this, I would direct you to the Aula. The more I write, the more I feel I'm heading towards the Aula. Or it's coming for me.
God, what
is the Aula, you ask? It's a truly demonic ventriloquism. When he wrote the story with this title, Guy Dow-Sainter had foresight of his own impending madness. The madness comes off a ship as a contagion, the way a plague usually arrives. But the only person it seems to infect is the story's narrator. It doesn't have a name at that point, this parasitic disease. And at first it follows its host around like a bad smell in the air, stalking him, then possessing. It's like an idée fixe or an earworm. What does it do to him that's so awful? It simply repeats every thought in his head, as if it is a foregone conclusion. What will be? It's an echo chamber in which he is the echo. Because it's a completely novel disease, the narrator christens it with this strange invented word, the hurler. In Maupassant's French, it's a pun for out there, but it's actually in here. He writes a diary about its inexorable contamination of him, forensically recording his withdrawal into locked-down mania. Someone directs all my actions, he says. All my movements, all my thoughts. He says that, but that's the hurler also speaking, sarcastically impersonating him. A hungry ghost. It eats his soul. I can hear its slobber, its maws clasping. Call it a persecution complex. For Maupassant's desperate narrator, suicide is the only way to silence this leering parasite and to exorcise it. But the hurler will survive. The hurler, after all, is the future. He sees it approaching every time he looks in the mirror. After man, he writes in the last line of his diary, comes the hurler. End product. This writer's shit. What comes after, ever after? What survives? The reader. That's the future. Overheard as an anonymous inner voice by the writer. When I tell you this story of Maupassant's, I am the hurler. I am this dead author's future.
Call this persecution? I call it narcissism. Morbid narcissism. You know ventriloquism is about venting, expelling air, an outburst. That's what this stuff about the hurler is. A respiratory illness, a transmissible disease that you catch in the air. You can be inoculated, but it's incurable. That's what survives. And that's the future we need to get back on track to. Not this hindsight hero stuff. Move on. So if I was writing this stuff, I'd make the hurler a dark angel of the internet. The recording angel Metatron. It'd be a networked artificial intelligence harvesting your data exhaust from every Google search and SMS, from all the channel surfing on your smart TV, from all the devices in your home, overhearing you gabbing to yourself during isolation. And I cast its voice as Ceres, the siren, and I'd let Siri be the outburst. I'd let her howl for her demon lover. This howl would be the serotonin discharge of a post-viral neural net in an ecstasy of communication. Siri, she would be the ultimate love interest in our story. The story of a depressive, obsolete ghostwriter who just doesn't get it. Doesn't get that there's no future for him. The future belongs with Siri. What else is left?
There are those who say that it was all a dream and that it didn't happen at all. But I tell you, it happened.
What's left to say? You may not believe it, judging by this performance, but I used to make my living from the spoken word. I guess that's what you call lecturing in a university. I was a performer in the worst of circumstances. In a lecture theatre where theatrics are considered affectations. If someone notices your behaviour in this theatre, you're overacting. The best lecture is the one in which its actual performance is overlooked, like a whiskey priest who does mass while slurring the words. He may be a write-off, but his words remain sound. What am I saying? Not only shouldn't you act up, you can only be taken seriously if you can't act. A lecture is a nondescript speech act, performed defiantly by a non-actor. Sad to say, I was good enough at performing this act, so badly that I kept my job long enough for it to be called a career. You can make a profession out of intentionally dying on stage. The art of dying. That's the Aula at work. That's what I can't escape. The thing directs all my actions. The thing that is coming this way. The future.
That's enough! No wonder he lost his job. Siri could have done it better. Now he's lost the plot as well, turning his back on the future. An agoraphobic hermit like an emaciated St. Anthony in a cave, and occupying his lack of occupation with reruns of Lost Life. Repetition is the method of execution of his death sentence. A monotonous replay of the wastes of time, scrapyards, deserts of dull air, a charred plague pit, shriveled weeds entwine the rusted bunkers, and he scavenges for a maggot's share of the arid compost, while words crack like scabs on the lips' crust. I see the future more unbearably than he does. I should know. I am that future. The end game.
the writer's paralyzing life support. I would unburden myself unremembered out of mind, but after me, what remains?